My name is Andy Boyan from Chainlink Labs, and I'm here with a bunch of guys from across the Avalanche ecosystem. And we're going to start, instead of starting with introductions, we're going to start with an add-on exercise. Okay, so this is where it begins. Connor, you're going to start. Who are you? Just very super brief introduction. And then in one sentence, and this is going to be too short, you're not going to be able to do this well, but that's okay. That's the purpose of it. What is the state of DeFi on Avalanche right now? All right, go ahead.
So I'm Connor. So I am from Ava Labs. I'm the head of our DApp squad. So I'm kind of the original creator of Pangolin. Now I'm doing a lot of work in the NFT space. So the state of DeFi on Avalanche is moving too fast to keep up with.
Moving too fast to keep up with. Fantastic. JD, you go next and then add to that. So the state of DeFi on Avalanche right now is moving too fast to keep up with. And what?
Got it. Okay. JD Gagnon, I'm one of the co-founders of Benki. State of DeFi on Avalanche is moving too fast to keep up with, but we're just getting started.
Moving too fast, but just getting started. I like that. Fish, go ahead and do the same thing. It's moving too fast to keep up with, just getting started, and what else?
Hey, I'm CryptoFish. I'm one of the co-founders of Trader Joe. Avalanche is moving too fast. What was it? Sorry.
Moving too fast. Moving too fast to keep up with, just getting started, and
moving too fast to keep up with, but just getting started, and really fucking degenerate right now.
Really degenerate right now. That's a really interesting. When we take a look at the evolution of blockchains and DeFi on chains and kind of see how they're going, to see this sort of has been a little bit of a degen wave in the past couple of weeks. Connor, what kind of makes you say in keeping too hard to keep up with, or if you want to respond to any of the other guys as well, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just like every time I go on Twitter, there's a new launch, or one of our favorite Twitter follows, Don Wanton, is telling me the 10 steps of leverage he's taking right now to get into the latest like meme coin drop or whatever. And I just can't, I have no idea what any of the 10 steps are. Like, okay, it started at Benki, but then there's 10 other layers of new coins that have come in the last week or two. That just managing your money on Avalanche and trying to take advantage of the latest yields it's a full-time job. And I find it very hard to build in the space and keep up with it at the same time. And it's very easy to go to sleep for a week, and then it turns out DeFi 2.0 has come and gone.
Yeah, I feel the exact same thing. It's like, okay, I know the Avalanche ecosystem, I'm ready to go, but I realized I knew it 3 months ago, like really well. Now, like I know a couple of the core products, but it's really hard to keep up with. Fish, you guys see a lot, especially some of these degen plays, the brand new coins being a part of Trader Joe, and you've kind of come out of the woodwork and organic project yourself. What's going on with these degen plays? Are people just seeing an opportunity and fast transaction speeds, and they're like, okay, let's go, this is the time? Or is there something else happening?
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know really. I just know there's a lot of ohm forks right now, and they're very popular. Obviously, I feel like the user experience on Avalanche is just very conducive to aping and degenning. Yeah, I guess the yields are good. I don't know. People aping together, so it's a good and fun place to be right now.
JD, what do you think?
I think to add to Connor's comment a minute ago, then you see Don a few hours later liquidated.
That was so funny.
It was pretty funny. I think it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of people making money. It's also, there's a lot of people not making money. But what it does is it creates a buzz around the ecosystem. I think if you look at, a couple of the other layer ones that have kind of exploded in the last year. It's a bit of a cycle that happens, right? Mm-hmm. You get the foundational DeFi stuff, you get all the pieces in place, you get the Trader Joes and the Benkis and Banker Joe and all the other kind of foundational pieces in the ecosystem, and some more secondary stuff, Curve and the like. And then all of a sudden, all these forks make sense, right? All these kind of degen forks make sense because you can borrow against your assets that are already there. You're comfortable with the ecosystem. You can ape and escape. And it's fun. It's really cool. People are making some pretty good money playing in the space. It's good for all of our protocols, of course, because it creates use cases. Excuse me. But I think what Avalanche does, and what I've been hearing a lot, is people come to Avalanche because they hear this hype and this buzz around these crazy yields and people are making money. But when you come to Avalanche, it's impossible not to notice the experience of participating in DeFi on Avalanche. I mean, the bridge is slick. There's proper dexes that are quick. The fees are low enough. The walls are about to get an upgrade, but even just working with MetaMask and Ledger, everything is pretty smooth. The user experience is really good. The chain just works. It's pretty awesome. Like, most people are very impressed with Avalanche once they come. So keep it up. I mean, all these Ohm forks printing money and bringing users, and it's ultimately what we're looking
Fish
for.
mentioned it's easy to ape, which really means like it's easy to get in and out of multiple contracts quickly and cheap. Like you can do pretty complex DeFi, whether or not it's like a degen play or whatever. You can do pretty complex DeFi plays layering on that composability for relatively inexpensive costs. Like and it's fast too. Like it works. So that's a real differentiator. When people are coming in and experiencing something different that seems like you've pulled out, JD, that I would agree with. Go ahead.
One final point on that. I think just about the cost and just the speed. I mean, Connor mentioned when you see Don's list of 8 or 10 activities, unless you have a high 6-7 figure portfolio on ETH, I mean, the cost of doing that would negate the value, the benefit. On Avalanche, you can do that with an average size portfolio and not lose half of it to fees, which I think is a huge draw for people. You can actually do the fun, complex, transaction types without losing your principal. Well, you could lose your principal without losing it to fees.
So there's been a lot of growth. Some growth is organic, like people just come in. Some is pulling in existing DeFi power users from Ethereum, as you say, from or other chains to use these apps. But when we're starting to look at what types of users these are, because I've seen both. I've been in Avalanche communities, and sometimes it's like, okay, I was on this, and now I come and I'm using this, or I'm splitting my portfolio. And some people are fresh-faced. What's a private key? New to the ecosystem. How do you guys think about users and like their experience? I want to start with Connor, because you guys you're seeing dApps across the ecosystem, and then JD and Fish, like, who are the users you're kind of targeting and seeing? Who are you answering the most questions for and things like that?
Well, I think it starts out, you have to define, what does it mean to be a user? Because there's definitely the builder community, but there's also the degen community, there's the new to crypto community. These people all have different desires. Some people want to see the best yields. Some people want to have a convenient place to launch their platform, to have good developer tools and be able to monetize their their experience. And then there's other people who just don't know anything about crypto, who need good on-ramps and easy experiences that will teach them what crypto is. And so we really have to cater to all of those people. And a big part of that is Avalanche Rush, which is our huge, many hundred of million, I'm not sure what the current valuation is, a DeFi incentive program, trying to spend some of our own Ava Labs money to help attract users and to just get people to try out Avalanche, because we're so confident in the product that we think that users will be sticky. If they try it out, we think they'll like it. And so we've actually partnered with a number of both legacy existing DeFi protocols from Ethereum and other chains, as well as native projects like BenKey and Trader Joe, to provide AVAX incentives for projects to give to their users to come out and try their projects. So I think Avalanche Rush is something that we definitely are using to try to cater to all three of those communities, because when projects have funds that they can give away, that's great for them. They're going to get new users. When users get free money for using projects, that's also great for them. So it's something that's really important. And if any projects are interested in applying for Avalanche Rush, we still have many more funds to give out. So definitely reach out to Ava Labs to see about that.
Now, I know when it comes to users, you take users. If you've got a dApp, you don't care where they're coming from. You want to help the experience overall. But Fish, providing an LP position is a bit of a leap for somebody who has not experienced that, right? That there, what's my ratio? How do I do it? Now I have this token. I have to add that to my wallet to see it. Now I got it, right? There's a whole bunch of steps. So are you seeing a lot of these fresh faced new people, or are you seeing people like me? Like I know DeFi on Ethereum really well and other chains. I can come to Avalanche and just step right in. What do you think you're seeing more of, at least lately?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest surprises when we first launched was we were expecting people to be familiar with DeFi on Ethereum. And when we first launched, that was completely not the case. Just to give you an example, like I don't know anyone who interacts with crypto or DeFi on their mobile. So, I mean, I certainly don't use MetaMask on mobile. So when we first launched, we were in a rush to launch and we were like, okay, screw it. Like that's not optimized for mobile. We don't need to make this site responsive. Like no one uses it anyways. And then come launch day, everyone was like, hey, this is not looking good for mobile. And we're like, yeah, well, obviously it looks like that.
Yeah.
It turns out, a lot of these users, they're from countries like Vietnam. They don't even own a desktop. They're like, well, now I have to go to the internet cafe to use Trader Joe. And that really surprised us. So, and our Google Analytics actually says that 40% of users use mobile. To add on top of that, like we have also this XJoe mechanic, which is very similar to XSushi. And the way that we explain it to people is like, hey, like it's just like sushi and XSushi. And people would ask us like, what the hell is sushi? So I definitely think there's a lot of people coming onto Avalanche who, I mean, maybe they come from BSC or Polygon, but they definitely are not familiar with like the Ethereum way of DeFi.
That's really, really interesting. I have recently, in the past month, done more with mobile MetaMask on Ethereum, and it's surprisingly okay. It's actually pretty good. The way the app works, it sometimes has trouble talking back to the browser and moving you to the right places, but it works pretty well. So that is coming along. But your point is absolutely surprised me because I didn't think of it. It's like, well, of course, there's many people are just on mobile, and if you think about fintech, Robinhood and the PayPal's and Venmos and whatever they're on, it's like that's all on mobile. It's basically banking. Really similar sort of things. JD, what do you see? You guys are a little more, lending, not as much LP. It's not as confusing, at least to me, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I think when we were doing the UX design initially, a big focus was on new users. And so, I mean, it's interesting because the path to get on Avalanche for most people, I mean, there's some fiat on-ramps now right onto Avalanche, but generally it's either through the AVAX token or through a bridge. Mm-hmm. And so just to get to Avalanche, there's a few steps. And so I have my mother-in-law wanting to buy, different things, and trying to walk people through it is kind of crazy. But coming back to it, I think at first we thought, okay, so Avalanche, once the DeFi ecosystem starts to flourish, it's going to provide opportunity that ETH didn't. For the masses of people that want to lend assets. I mean, if you lend $10,000 and earn 5%, for example, it costs you more than that on Ethereum to go in and out of some of the lending protocols. So I mean, it was out of reach for a lot of users, and we thought, and it has been the case, Avalanche, really opened that up to a lot of people. Then again, there's still that demographic that has the assets, that is used to following yield and trying to find protocols that they think are safe and taking advantage of arbitrage or high yield opportunities. But I mean, user acquisition has really been, for us, focusing on user experience and trying to have an app that makes sense to people. If you've used DeFi a lot, then fine, the friction is low anyways. But if you haven't, we wanted to make it as simple as possible. And I think now that we're getting, as of I think yesterday, or this is recorded, so as of a few days ago, USDT will now be native on Avalanche, which is pretty exciting because that offers a legitimate way to go to and from off ramps without having to go through a bridge via centralized exchanges or other on and off ramps. And I think that's going to make a huge difference for new user acquisition.
You bring up this really interesting dynamic that I think Fish was talking about too, which is for new users, it has to be familiar enough and ready enough that they can pick up and use and participate. But for established DeFi users that have assets, like that want to participate in DeFi, you need that liquidity, right? That's the protocols need the liquidity to be able to provide those services for the new users. And so it's a bit of both. You have to be familiar enough and feel like something you've known at this point, because DeFi is plenty more than a year old. We're 2 years, and really the UIs are very well established. People understand what an AMM UI looks like and LP and kind of how that looks. And there are certainly takes on that, but still now there's kind of this set of norms about that. I see we've talked a little bit about, sort of other blockchains and bridges and this thing. Web3 to me is clearly a multiplayer game, unless you're a complete maxi, which we know the maxis, AVAX maxis, but not necessarily one chain will win on all fronts all the time. So where do you think DeFi on Avalanche fits in a multi-chain world? We've got ETH, we've got L2s, we've got side chains, we've got other implementations of chains with other bridges, all sorts of things. Connor, what's your perspective on that and how Avalanche fits in?
So I think Avalanche plays both in the present and in the future. I think right now we're seeing tons of new and exciting dApps choosing to launch on Avalanche first. And so we have native projects like Trader Joe and Benki, as well as the existing players. So everything that you're used to being on Ethereum is here. We have native projects launching here because it's cheaper. But I think what's interesting to look at is how Avalanche is going to adapt in the future. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to shill subnets, which are something that Avalanche can do that not many other chains can. And basically, it's a way for us to do kind of horizontal scaling. And so, what that means is you can actually Avalanche is actually kind of a layer 0 platform where you can build extra blockchains on top of it. Many people think Avalanche is just an Ethereum fork, but actually Avalanche has 3 main blockchains right now: our P chain, our X chain, and our C chain. And our C chain is our Ethereum chain. But in the future, you can actually add more chains, and you can do so permissionlessly. And those chains don't have to be all the same operating rules. They can be entirely different. They could be a copy of Bitcoin or a copy of Solana. And so Avalanche actually has the capability to add these extra chains and bridge between them seamlessly. And because we can do that, I think Avalanche has a lot of future proofing to be able to add application-specific blockchains that can absorb more load than being on a centralized chain. Because I saw a really great tweet the other day, I think from the creator of the Finematics YouTube channel, who was talking about the idea that one chain can handle all of the load kind of in the world. It's crazy. We have to have a multi-chain future, because basically the idea of a blockchain is kind of taking all of the compute power that we have in our billions of computers around the world and condensing that into a single world computer. And the idea that we can have a single computer that is the size, has the capacity of basically all of the rest of the world's computing power combined is crazy. We need to distribute that horizontally on multiple chains. And I think Avalanche can provide a lot of that scalability internally, as well as cooperating with other chains like Ethereum. And that's why we focus so much on bridging ourselves and making sure that we have strong links between different ecosystems.
Yeah, I've seen a fair amount of conversation on Twitter about the difference between a consensus mechanism versus a Sybil protection versus, et cetera. And that's pretty deep in the weeds for a lot of people. So if you want to know more about that, we don't need to get into that right here. But it's interesting to see and see how people adjust their mental models to see well, how does this fit into what I know already? And there are some, changes that the way I've thought about it is subnets, at least, is C chain, the thing people are using Benki on and Trader Joe on. That's basically a subnet, and you can have more different ones of those in the future. So that makes sense there. JD, how are you guys thinking about multi-chain? You're Avalanche native, C-chain native. Both of you are, but how does multi-chain play in? You've got sort of competitor projects that are multi-chain already. How does that fit into your mental model?
Yeah, good question. I echo Connor in the sense that although we're pretty bullish on Avalanche in general, which is why we built here on purpose for a whole host of reasons, specifically subnet capabilities. But we believe in a multi-chain future. There's not going to be one ETH killer. There's not going to be one chain, in our opinion, that is the world chain, like Connor said. We've had a lot of opportunities to go multi-chain, but we felt that our brand was at least in the current environment, better suited to build community on Avalanche. We started on Avalanche with a purpose, and we want to build our product suite to serve the community that we're on. In terms of DeFi in a multi-chain world, I think eventually you'll see chains emerging for their strengths. In our mind, at least you'll see, Cardano doing one thing that they're good at. You'll see Solana doing another. And I think for us, at least, the bet we're making is that Avalanche primarily will be focused on, or will be suited for, financial applications, just given the finality and the consensus mechanism and how decentralized it can become with so many subnets all working together, that from an institutional perspective, financial perspective, you can build some incredibly powerful applications on subnets, and you can do a lot of really unique things with regulation. And I think the other thing that we think is going to be huge on Avalanche is gaming. For that same reason, a lot of gaming, as games are getting started and scaling up, they need incredibly fast, incredibly cheap infrastructure, and but they don't have the capital to initially to be buying a parachain or auctioning a parachain, and some of these things. So if I had to guess, and I'm definitely not an authority on the future of Avalanche, but I think those two things are incredibly well suited for Avalanche, among others, of course. But that's why we made our bet to be on Avalanche.
Fish, how do you guys approach multi-chain? You have done incredibly well launching organically and just being this community-driven, almost a meme-driven project that has real liquidity and provides an incredible service on Avalanche. So what are your thoughts about being native, being multi-chain? Where does this fit in a multi-chain world?
Yeah, I think multi-chain is, I don't think it's in our plans. I think it's just too much effort to, technically and engineering wise, it's not hard. You just deploy your code into another chain. But what we do good at is community building, and I just think having to deploy a whole new community on another chain, it's going to dilute your original community, and I don't want to risk that. I don't think it's good for the project. Maybe at one point, if we reach like an Aave level and we can kind of just, carry our brand name just carries itself, then possibly in the future. But in the meantime, I don't think there's any reason to go multi-chain. And, we do a lot of cross-marketing for a lot of projects. Like we have projects that started off in Avalanche. We have projects that cross-chained over from other chains to Avalanche. And what we found is that the ones that are easiest to market and the ones that are most well-received by the community are always the native projects. So in the flip side, that's like one reason why we don't want to go cross-chain. It's not like we're Avalanche maxis or anything, but it's just a lot easier to, I think it's more important to kind of maintain and improve your presence on the native chain than to start branching out.
Well, there's something to be said for organic growth. If there's this significant demand, a group of people that in the Trader Joe community that are like, hey, launch on Harmony too, like let's go, we want to go over there, that might make sense. But if people aren't asking for it, then why deliver? And I was thinking of Harmony because their DeFi is relatively new, where I saw an Avalanche 6 months ago or something, and what I see is a DeFi project will launch on Harmony and everybody goes there, and then another one, and then everybody goes there. At Avalanche, it's like a little more spread out, and there's multiple, and I'm not sure what there's a little too much to keep track of. And something like Ethereum, it's so built out that like, I don't know, I'm in my thing. I don't know what's going on everywhere else. There's so much going on. And it just might be a phase of growth, of an ecosystem growth, as products build, as composability increases, as users come on, that complexity increases and demand over time. You guys have been super generous. Got a Chainlink question for you, and then we'll start wrapping up a little bit. Chainlink oracles are an infrastructure component that has helped both Benki and TJ launch products, Trader Joe with your lending product as well recently. So what are some of the advantages of Chainlink on Avalanche in particular that you see as a differentiating factor as to why it's been helpful for you? JD, why don't you start?
Couldn't unmute. Obviously Chainlink brings a lot of validation, I think, to just the security infrastructure for us. it was important when we launched. There wasn't lending protocols on the ecosystem. So it was, how can we offer something that focuses on first security and solvency and risk mitigation, which is why we've partnered with Gauntlet and Chaos Labs and Certora and Immunify and obviously Chainlink. Really, we just wanted to ensure that when people were coming over, they could say, okay, at least we know that the things that exist in the space already that generally lend themselves well to confidence exist on Benki. And so Chainlink was a big piece of that. When you guys launched on, Avalanche, one of the big things that was of interest to us is the redundancy and the additional security provisions that exist in Ethereum. Obviously, that all carried over to Avalanche as well. And so it wasn't a quick launch. We could maybe argue that it took longer than we all hoped for you guys to support us. But once you launched,
you're saying you guys, I wasn't pushing any buttons, man. It's a protocol. I run a YouTube.
Andy, they all blame you. When you're not
know.
But joking aside, I think it was we were confident, and the community was confident that it was done right, and that was important to us. Not to say that there aren't other oracles in the space, but Chainlink, you're the trusted. The trusted source, and like I said, the redundancy in feeds was important. The service level that we receive still from your service team is incredible. When we want to support new assets and different things, it's a very open, free line of communication between major projects and Chainlink. So that was huge. That's probably one of the biggest competitive advantages. And then again, I've said this a few times, but the redundancy was important. What happens if some nodes are down or a price feed is down? What are the backup plans? And Chainlink has an incredible structure for that. And so for us, we didn't have to stress about that one vector as we were launching a new protocol, and that made a huge difference.
Why I'm in Chainlink is because you don't have to trust me. It's like you trust the technology. You go to the protocol. I'm not involved with that. And people, people help build the technology and get people set up, but it's fundamentally good technology. Sorry, not to show my own project too much, but I'm here for a reason. Fish, how about you? You guys have launched with Chainlink more recently. Your lending offering. Talk a little bit about that. What has that added?
For us, it's simple. Oracles are a very, very hard problem, and we don't want to go down the business of building our own oracle. Chainlink is, a very well-respected name in the space, probably the most secure oracle out there. So, and in terms of building with Chainlink, it's super easy. All you have to do is literally just pass in the contract address to check the price feed, and that's it, really. So for us, it was really a no-brainer. And also given Chainlink's presence, we just knew you guys are going to be here for a while. We love the Link Marines. Good.
Well, as soon as I saw that integration kind of come through our pipelines and on the back end, I got really excited because I knew how impactful Trader Joe has been on Avalanche. And JD, I got to talk with you and do stuff with Benki early on. You said when you guys first launched D5, the first lending protocol. On Avalanche as well. Connor, I talked to you a while ago on the podcast as well, plugged for the Chainlink podcast. What is Chainlink to bring for you, just helping projects, seeing them across the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it was a big blocker for a long time, is not having a top tier oracle on Avalanche. And obviously Chainlink was the first. And that was really what unlocked, I think, a big wave of DeFi projects on Avalanche, because when it comes to smart contract security, most of the issues that people see are not 0 days. Almost all of the compromises that we see for these big money attacks are because of bad price feeds. And so if you want to launch your project securely, you need a secure price feed, and Chainlink provides that. And so once Chainlink was unlocked, then that enabled Benki to launch, that enables Banker Joe, that enables Aave to come over, and all of these other components that allowed us to scale up our ecosystem dramatically, because lending was a key building block, and so many other applications use it. But looking forward to the future, one of the things I'm personally impressed with is how how flexible the actual Chainlink client is for structuring queries. People know about your price feeds, but people probably don't use the oracles for much else. There's the verified random function, which we're still waiting for on Avalanche. I know we've been in some conversations. I think it's happening eventually. I'm not going to put out any dates or anything, but the verified random function is a really big component that's going to help projects in the gaming space, I think in particular, allowing you to have random numbers on chain. But Chainlink also does a lot of other stuff. You can basically structure any kind of Oracle query you want. You can kind of say, like, I want to do a web request to get this web page and parse the results and say, get me this value. So you can use it to build Oracle APIs for kind of any service out there. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential there that, as the space expands and when people want sports betting apps and all these other things, we're going to see a lot more Chainlink integrations. And I think that's one thing that I'm personally excited for.
Yeah, and there's sports data, there's weather data, there's all kinds of other stuff. Anything you can get an API for, you can get on chain if you want. And I get to see that, being part of Chainlink Labs, I get to see the hackathon. It's hard to keep track of every other project's hackathon, but I get to see these ones, and there's so many cool ideas that come out. Chainlink Hackathon is still going on by the time this comes out, so if you've got a cool idea, you should go get on that. And I know Avalanche is a sponsor as well, so opportunities there as well. Let's do a wrap up. What's coming up? What are you excited for in the next couple of weeks or months on your particular platform? Let's go around. We'll start with Fish, JD, and then Connor, and then I'll do a little wrap up here.
Yeah, we're just excited for more projects to come into the ecosystem. I think there's like a bunch of exciting projects coming up, like Platypus. I think Crabadile just launched, Hubble, Arrow. I mean, for us, like, we win when the ecosystem wins. So the more projects, the merrier it is.
Awesome. Keep an eye out for new liquidity pools on Trader Joe. JD, what do you guys got coming out?
Yeah, we've got a really cool liquid staking product coming out for Apex. It's pretty neat. We've worked a long time on the infrastructure to keep it incredibly secure and super decentralized, and we've had it tested by a lot of third parties to confirm that is the case. Just finishing audit now. So
is that liquid staking like for the protocol?
For Avex, yeah. For the
like proof of stake.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so super excited about that. Obviously, it leads to a ton of capital efficiency and just opens up a whole new realm of potential for users to keep the network secure and decentralized, but still use those assets in DeFi and different things as the market hopefully continues to provide opportunity for us. We're also rolling out a safety module, somewhat similar to the way Aave's done it, but we've made quite a few changes. And that's pretty exciting to be able to provide security for Benki. Security being, if anything adverse happens to the platform, we have kind of our own insurance pool through Chi slashing, but it creates a different vector of yield potential, risk reward potential for Chi holders. That will be coming out by the end of the year too. So it should be a good end to the year for us. Exciting.
Awesome. Connor, what do you guys got coming out, or things that you are excited about? They could be ecosystem.
Yeah.
If you got a hackathon coming, anything like that.
So I think I actually live most of my days in the NFT space right now. And so my personal mission that I'm working on is trying to make sure that every brand in the world can launch their NFTs on Avalanche, and trying to make that as easy as possible and able to reach as many users as possible. So I think over the next few months, you're going to see an explosion in the number of tier 1 brands that are coming to Avalanche. And I think it's going to be really cool. I think we're going to see different NFT use cases that we've ever seen before. Like Fish said, Crabada is a NFT based game. I think that's coming out very soon. That is absolutely blowing up on Avalanche right now. I met some of the creators in Lisbon a few weeks ago, and I'm super stoked for that as well. So I'm going to throw out the NFT ecosystem as something I'm very stoked about.
I thought you were going to drop some alpha there.
Just hearing Goon talk about NFTs in the past, like, he's really excited about those as just a mechanism and what they can do. And what I've heard from him is he doesn't think they're scratching the surface yet. So I'm excited to see what that entire technology stack is, and people are going to figure out what to do with in the coming decades and centuries, Really exciting. Guys, it has been amazing having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Just have a talk about the state of DeFi on Avalanche and a little bit more. Come back next time. I'll touch base with all y'all. Maybe get you on the podcast eventually, Fish. Maybe and JD, you didn't come on the podcast, so maybe I get to have you as well. And maybe we'll see each other at conferences in the future as well. Thanks a lot, guys. Again, this is Andy Boyne with Chainlink Labs. Like and subscribe to this video. We've got series like these coming out, user roundtables like this, project spotlights, technical deep dives, all sorts of content. Appreciate you being here, and we'll talk to you guys next time on a Chainlink user roundtable.